Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast series called Today It's Okay Not to Be Okay. We have an incredible episode in store for all of our listeners because it is focused on the simple secret of being happier. I'm sure a lot of people who are tuning into this podcast would resonate, but sometimes I sit up at night and ask myself questions such as, what does true happiness actually mean? Or questions like, how can I be happier and achieve happiness that really lasts? So, Dr. Buxani is our expert today, and she will be helping us answer these really important questions. I am also a new face, so I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Himakshi. I am 19 years old, and I'm a rising sophomore student studying finance and ESG at the Wharton Business School. So, Dr. Buxani, I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. And let's start with our first question. Happiness can feel perfect. So, happiness can feel like a moving target for a lot of us. How do you personally define it in a way that feels real and achievable?
So I think first we need to understand that the pursuit of happiness might not be the right pursuit, right? So I think we talk a lot about happiness. I think what we need to shift is we need to talk about peace, right? That inner peace, the contentment, the ability to be okay with self, right? And that's what brings happiness. I think people need to understand that happiness is about me being my authentic self. So in any situation where I'm not being my authentic self, if I'm saying no when I want to say yes, or if I'm saying yes when I want to say no, those things actually rob me of that peace and of happiness. So the most important thing I think that people need to understand is if you really want to be at peace, if you really want to be happy, um, you really need to start working on being your authentic self.
I love that. That is an amazing answer, Dr. Rakshani. That brings me on to my second question, which is that we often chase happiness through things like success, money, relationships. I can speak for myself personally, but sometimes I set myself a goal like, for example, I want to get, an A on my exam. And I'll work really hard for it. When it comes around to it, if I achieve it, I'll be quote unquote happy for a few seconds, but then that feeling is sort of fleeting. I don't think that's really lasting happiness. So I'd really love to know, what do you think and why do you think these external things rarely ever lead to lasting joy?
Right. So hidden in this question is something very important. Let's talk about that, right? Dr. Gabor Mate, who's done a lot of work and he's phenomenal with really, understanding how your self-esteem affects your level of happiness, or how trauma affects your level of happiness. Like, where do you find peace? I mean, he's done phenomenal work. And really what he talks about is two kinds of self-esteem. And I think that's where we get stuck, right? So there's a contingent self-esteem, which is based on, what am I achieving and what others think about me, versus a genuine self-esteem, which is like, I am okay with myself whether or not I achieve this, right? And I think most of us are stuck in that contingent self-esteem, where what we're doing is we're delaying feeling good about ourselves, because it's tied to what somebody else thinks about me, or whether I get that A or not, right? Or whether I've achieved X goal in my life in terms of my business or career, right? So we are stuck in that. And the problem is, with contingent self-esteem, you're always going to have a hole, Himakshi. You're always going to feel empty, right? Because, like you said, I'll feel okay for a few minutes, and we don't even know if that's really happiness, right? It might just be like that little dopamine kicking in, and you're saying, okay, this feels good, but then I'm right back to, okay, now what do I do? So really, all of us trying to work towards that genuine self-esteem where I'm okay with myself, whether I'm achieving something or not. And that doesn't mean that you don't set goals for yourself and you don't try to achieve. But your self-esteem, your happiness is not attached to those achievements, right? So I do my best, and if I achieve, great. if I don't achieve, I'm still okay with self.
I love that perspective, Dr. Buxani, and I think the next time I do have an exam that comes in place, I'm gonna shift my focus from something that's contingent to something that's genuine in nature.
Genuine.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That takes me on to my next question, which is if we had, and if I wanted more of like a clear cut answer, right? Is there a simple secret to actually being happier? And if you think there is, what would you say that secret is?
No, so there isn't. There
Okay.
is and there isn't. Okay. Let's talk about some of the things that I think are very important for us to experience that true contentment, peace, happiness. One is, again, let's go back to that word that I've used, the authentic self, right? Like being authentic to yourself. And in a bit, you and I can do an exercise that I think will really help, because it will guide us in that direction of, okay, what do you mean be your authentic self? Like, what does that mean? How do I do
Right.
it, right? Okay. And it's not my exercise. Again, I've stolen it from Dr. Gabor Mate, but again, he is phenomenal. Um, but it's being that authentic self, having agency, right? Taking accountability, taking that responsibility for what I am doing in my life. I think that's very important, because if I feel that lack of control or loss of control, or sometimes I'll have clients come in and listen, they're sad, they're anxious, and that's obviously they're struggling with those things. But taking that accountability and saying that in spite of me having this, I'm still going to hold myself responsible for whatever's going on in my life, because I can't. All people have childhood traumas, and that affects them very, it has really detrimental effects as we go into adulthood. But at the end of the day, today I'm an adult and I can still make choices. So I think
Right.
people understanding that, listen, this is still a choice, gives them a sense of control, which again makes people feel better and happier. The third thing I think is acceptance. And I think that's a very big one, because if there is a situation that I find myself in that I can't change, then being able to accept that situation and say, okay, you know what, I will do what I can in the situation that's presented to me. Maybe this is a situation I can't change. So
Right.
the acceptance, and not only acceptance of the situation, but also again going back to that self, that acceptance of self, right? So these things really help with me moving in that direction. But having said that, this is a lifelong journey. I
Right.
wish there was a simpler way, but it's really a journey that we go on, I think, from when we are children to adults, to get to that place of the acceptance and living our authentic
That's a
life.
beautiful answer. I also feel like there are a few terms that are thrown around, or we sort of correlate with conversations surrounding happiness. A few of them are gratitude, presence, connection. They often are mentioned, right? If I were to phrase this question better, as keys to happiness. Which one, if you think there is one, has the biggest impact on our lives and why?
I would say, okay, so all of these are great,
Right.
right? Coming from a place of gratitude is also coming from a place of acceptance, right? So that's lovely. Presence is really that mindfulness, right? Like that I'm living in the present moment, and that again gives us that acceptance piece of, okay, I can't change, I can't go back and change the past. I don't have control over the future. What I have is this minute. What can I have an acceptance of this minute? So
Right.
all of these, they are tools to maybe that bigger umbrella of that acceptance. So all of
Right.
these things help, as long as I'm understanding that the end goal is to get to that place of acceptance, is to get to that place of agency, and is to get to that place of living my authentic self.
Right. And I feel like these are amazing practices to live by, but I really want to sort of visualize this. And I think
Let's
maybe
do it. Let's do it. Okay.
amazing.
All right. Okay. So, and remember, share as much as you are comfortable sharing. Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So the first question is, identify where in important areas of your life, right? Like, so your school, home, friends, right? So these are important areas of your life. So, in important areas of your life, identify where do you have trouble saying no?
I think for sure, when it comes to maybe school, there are so many incredible opportunities, especially after I've joined college. There are new clubs that are hosting things. I'm personally really into like environmentalism, so I'll see one thing, I'll see another, and I sort of get sucked into a loophole. Not saying that it's not exciting, but or an opportunity will come up and my instant reaction is yes. So I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is school.
Okay. Okay. What impact does that have on you when you keep saying yes? What, what impact does that have on you?
I think in the short term, it leads to me being a little bit overwhelmed for sure. I guess we
Okay.
have only 24 hours in a day. So when you're taking a lot on, especially if that's sort of beyond what you think you can manage in a day, then that feeling of like anxiety sort of
Right.
starts to build.
Okay. Can you write that down? So you said overwhelm and anxiety, right? Okay. So
Yes.
what you not being able to say no in those situations impacts you in, and you feel, right?
Yes.
And you feel anxiety in your body, you feel anxiety, that overwhelm in your body. Okay. Now, and I really want you to think about this. What is the belief behind the inability to say no? What do you think will happen if you say no? What's that
That's
deep
a great
belief
question.
that you have? Yeah.
That's a great question. I think
Remember,
that
I'm a therapist, so I have to get into the deep stuff.
yes, absolutely. I think maybe that fear that I'm gonna miss out on like an amazing opportunity or miss out on an experience that's really gonna help me like learn something or um, really grow career wise as well. I think yeah, that like I guess if I use Gen Z slang here, FOMO, like the fear of missing out almost.
Okay, but where does the belief of FOMO come from, right? Because
Mhm.
because if even that fear that, oh my gosh, I might miss out where maybe somebody else might get that opportunity, right? What's the belief behind that? What's that inner thing?
I think also maybe like letting myself down in a way. Um, I can sometimes feel like if I don't take this on, um, I don't sort of want to let my expectations or like perform under what I call or like expectations that I want to sort of have and be
Set for
met.
yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, and where, when you dig a little deeper, right? Where did these expectations come from? When was that time that you can remember, that you can go back in your childhood and say, I needed to do this. Like, I needed to prove this to myself, right? Because
Right.
that's what I'm hearing you say, that I've set these expectations for myself. So I don't want to let myself down, which means I need to prove to myself. Or let's say, if you didn't prove to yourself, what what
Right.
what would that mean? What's the belief behind that? Like, if you did let yourself down.
Yeah. I think now that you ask me this, I might exaggerate this more in my head than how like deep the situation actually is. I think if I did quote unquote like let myself down according to my expectations, I would feel a little restless or maybe anxious or upset for a little bit. But then I guess you just get back up if it doesn't go your way and like try again.
Correct. But I'm not
Correct.
asking you, what I'm asking is, what is that belief, right? So what's the belief of, that, okay, if I say no,
Mhm.
I let myself down. Okay,
Yeah.
if I let myself down, then what happens? What's the
Um,
belief behind that?
I think also like I believe that like sort of a chain reaction if um might trigger um that if I don't, achieve this, then it might hinder like later plans or like things that I've set for myself. and like that belief that I might like sort of like fail, which I should accept better, but that
No,
fear
no,
is
no, there's
there.
no shoulds. We never should on ourselves. No, we,
Yeah.
the shoulds are kept out. Okay,
Right.
so the deep belief is the fear of failure, right?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
fear of failure, Himakshi, comes from my childhood, correct?
Right.
Okay, tell me something. What would, say, tomorrow you woke up in the morning and you didn't have that belief anymore. You didn't, what what would you be without that belief? If you didn't have that fear of failure, how would things be different for you?
I think it would change from an environment where um, I'm constantly like sort of restless, like I have to get things done, things have to go like this way in my day, um, to something that's a bit more laid back, that of course be like driven, dedicated, plan your day to like the best of your capabilities, but um, yeah, without like that fear, I guess, like constantly on my back.
Yeah, yourself. That
Yes.
true self of, okay, today I don't feel like doing anything. I
Yeah.
don't have this nagging voice in me saying, are you kidding me? Get up, start being productive, go do this, right?
Yeah.
Like you would just be. Maybe
Right.
you would go out for a walk.
Right.
I know you're in Dubai, it's too hot, but maybe you would just go hang out in the mall. Maybe you would do
Right.
whatever your heart desires,
Yes.
but that being true to yourself, right?
Yes.
Now, let me flip the question, okay? Are there areas in your life that you want to say yes, but you say no?
Um, ooh, that's a great question. I think, um, to an extent, yes. When it comes to trying new things like adventure wise or with leisure time as well, um, I sometimes will be in my room and I'll be like, hey, I really want to learn like how to play this new game. I, for example, played Mario Kart yesterday. Fun fact, it was my
Oh,
first
yay.
time doing that.
I love Mario. Every Mario over there, I love.
Yes. In fact, I chose Yoshi. I know you have a dog named Yoshi, so as
Yes,
my
yes.
character. um, but yeah, like I think simple things like that, like time spent
Yeah,
on leisure. I'd love to say yes to that because I think that in itself is like an exciting experience.
absolutely. And there, my friend, is your answer to how do I be happy? By
Right.
being your authentic self, by
Yes.
allowing yourself to be your authentic self, right? So, we went through this exercise quite quick and quite briefly, you know, but even that, right? Like that understanding of, wow, I'm actually living my life so much based on this belief system or this fear that I have from my childhood that I haven't healed. So how do I get to that place of happiness? Nothing from the outside, right? So no amount of getting A's,
Yes.
no cars, no having the big house. And we know a
Right.
lot of people who have so much money are so miserable, they're so unhappy
Right.
because those things don't. It's only when I can be true to who I am, when I can say no when I want to say no, and I can say yes when I want to say yes, that's when true happiness is experienced.
I love that, and I'm
And that's
definitely
why it's a journey, Himakshi, because it's
yes.
not something that happens, like this conversation, you'll reflect upon it, you'll
Yes.
think, and then next time, when you're operating, that doesn't mean the fear is going to go away. Probably
Right.
you'll take a minute and say, okay, what do I really want to do here, right? But really healing those parts that get stuck somewhere in my childhood, and then beginning to live that true to myself life, that's where happiness comes from.
Yeah, I'm very glad I've had and partaken in this exercise with you because I think the next time I like plan out my day or set a goal, I'm definitely going to be considering, the perspectives that I wasn't quite doing, like what I actually want, and yeah, not letting fear drive me essentially. Um,
Right. And remember, it's a journey.
yes.
So you're not going to get there in a day, not in a month. This it's a lifelong journey for all of us.
Perfect. Um, my next question, actually, since we are talking a lot about personal experiences, Dr. Buxani, I would love to know from you, can you share a personal experience where a small mindset shift has led to an increase in your happiness?
Sure. So, I grew up, Himakshi, in a family that is very social.
Right,
Like we used to have a lot of gatherings at home. Like my parents were quite into that, and I really never enjoyed it. I actually hated it.
right,
Um, for the longest time, I did not accept that part of myself because I thought there was something wrong with me, right?
right,
That why am I not going out? Why am I okay just being, like lying down in my bed and watching a really good episode of a series that I like, or reading a really good book and then going to bed? Like there's something wrong with me. So I spent quite a few years trying to push myself and saying yes to things that I wanted to say no, only
right,
because I thought there was something wrong with me. Then came a point where I was like, no, hold on a second. What's going on here? And I did that journey within myself. And I realized I'm an introvert. I
right,
actually don't like going out. My social battery gets exhausted after having, my job itself, what I do with clients, it's a very verbal career to have, right? Because I'm constantly talking to my clients. And so when I go home, I don't want to go out. I don't want to talk to people. So I
right.
think that acceptance of I'm an introvert. I don't actually enjoy this. And now I kind of wear it as a badge of honor. If anybody asks me, I'm like, no, sorry, I'm an introvert. I can't. It just doesn't sit right with me. So I think that was such a big change, and it was such a big relief when I could accept myself, and whether anybody else, accepted that or not, I was okay with me, and I was okay with being that introvert, um, who loved, who loves what she does, and goes home. I'm with my family. I don't need a lot of social, stimulation,
Right.
and I'm good with that. But I think the shift about being okay with myself was so profound in my journey. So that was kind of my experience, one of my experiences of that self acceptance.
Right. That's an amazing sort of realization that you've had, and what I really picked up from that is wearing it, accepting it, and wearing it as like your badge of honor. I think that's a great mindset to live by, and I think I'm going to start implementing that myself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Perfect. My second question, and sort of a follow-up question to that, is um, related to the online world. I think we all know that in the past 15 to 20 years specifically, we've seen a rise in the number of hours people, not just the youth, honestly, just everyone is spending online. But with that, and like the rise of social media, for example, we are constantly getting information about what other people are doing in their lives, literally 24/7. And I think specifically with social media, it's sort of created in a way where people really want to share like the best versions of their lives. Um, if I'm having a bad day, I won't necessarily like take out my Instagram.
I wish they did, but
Yeah,
yes, but they don't.
exactly. So, sort of to tie into what I've just spoken about, for someone stuck in a loop of negativity and sort of self comparison, what's one thing they can start doing today to like shift towards a happier mindset?
Acceptance of self.
Right.
Listen, the only time that I'm going to compare myself, Himakshi, to somebody is because I don't have that sense of self, right? If I'm okay with me, then when I look at someone doing something, okay, in fact, it might be like, wow, good for them.
Yeah.
That's not me, but good for them that they can do it, right? You know, because the comparison really doesn't come from what somebody else is doing. The comparison comes from a place of insecurity within me. And
Of
how
course.
do I again get to that place of not being insecure? By accepting myself. If I constantly set standards that are higher and higher and higher that I'm not able to achieve, okay, then how am I going to feel secure, right? So
Right.
again, going back to that genuine self-esteem, trying to build that genuine self-esteem where I can say that whether or not I do something, I'm going to be okay with me. I'm going to be at peace with me. That's when we stop comparing ourselves to other people. And that's what helps, live that calm and a very fulfilling life that I'm okay. And in fact, like I said, it might also be a life that I might say, good for that person to be able
Yeah.
to do that. So you don't come from a place of envy, jealousy, because you're okay with you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
every point, and like I hope by now
Yes.
I've been able to clarify. When we talk about happiness, happiness is always going to be equal to me being my authentic self. So
Right.
everything that I can do to move towards that authenticity, that acceptance, that agency towards my actions, that's what's going to help result in me being happy in whatever context, in my work, with my friends, with social media, all of that.
Yes. And Dr. Rashani, to sort of tie it all in together, um, if I were to plan my day, because as you said, the pursuit of happiness is a journey. So I guess we need to start with small things and small steps as we go along the process. If I wanted to, for example, tomorrow, change the way that I plan my day to make sure that I sort of begin my journey um, to happiness, what are some everyday habits or rituals which you think I should include, which would help me and all our listeners feel more joyful and present?
So here's what I'm going to do. There's only one.
Yes.
The one that I want you to do is the exercise that I just did with you, right? So every
Right.
time you are in a situation where you have to decide to do or not to do something, I want you to reflect. I want you to go within and ask yourself, right? Um, what do I really want? If if somebody asks you, like sometimes, because I have kids and my kids will come and they'll ask me to do stuff, right? And as a mom, because you're always feeling guilty, um,
Yes.
the immediate answer is yes, okay, but not maybe taking a moment to ask myself, what do I need at this moment? How do I feel at this moment, right? What do I want to do? Do I really want to do this, or am I tired? Maybe I just want to go take a nap.
Right.
But slowly functioning from self is
Right.
what is going to make us happy. So if I say no, I want to ask myself, okay, where is this coming from, right? Like, am I saying no to something that I actually want to say yes to, like the
Yes.
Mario Kart, right?
Yes.
Or am I saying yes to something that I want to say no to?
Right.
So you're taking that moment to reflect, where is this coming from? What is a belief I hold about this? What do I believe will happen if I say that no? Will people not like me? And if that is my driving force, to let myself know that that's coming from some belief that I have had since childhood, that I kind of internalize. But it doesn't have to be that way. I can give myself permission today to be able to live a life that I am okay with. And that ultimately, just even that little shift, Himakshi, is
Right.
going to make a world of a difference to me moving in that path to being happier. And
Right.
then, of course, if people want to do the gratitude journal, lovely idea. I think you can do that. If you want to practice meditation in terms, of being mindful, so that you can actually, answer some of those questions, like, okay, where's this belief coming from? Because again, the capacity to look within, I think that's fabulous. And if those connections that you talked about, if you want to have those connections, if they drive you, then
Yes.
yes, by all means. But the most important thing is being able to spend that time with yourself to figure out what is it that you want, what is it that you want to say yes to, and what is it that you want to say no to, and being
Right.
okay with that.
Right. I also want to ask, so there are some days where life feels particularly like heavy or uncertain. Some days are more stressful than others. And on those days specifically, how can I or how can anyone really balance being happy with being realistic?
So I think you always have to be realistic, right?
Okay.
Happiness does not have anything to do with the reality unless it's the your own reality, right?
Right.
And if it's a day that's particularly heavy, then asking yourself what you need in terms of self care, right? So um, we talk about self care in terms of body, mind, and soul. What does what does my body need? What does my mind need? What does my soul need to be able to cope with this stressful situation? Again, the acceptance is that I can't maybe change that situation,
Right.
right? There is this stressful situation that's presented, but what is it that I need in the moment? But again, going within and asking yourself, because maybe what I need in that moment is to go for a nice, lovely bath, because, with candles, because that's what helps me relax. But I
Right.
have to be able to say no then to somebody else who's coming and asking me for something, right? So again, being able to deal with those stressful situations is going to come back to me almost doing like a check-in with
Right.
myself. What do I need? What do I need in mind? What do I need in body? What do I need in soul? Maybe
Right.
body, I need to take a nap. I'm really tired. Okay, I'm going to give myself permission to do that.
Yes, I think that is great. And sort of talking about check-ins, I've realized that my day-to-day personally looks a lot like I've made a checklist and I'm taking things off. So I'm gonna add like a check-in section to my checklist and really
Absolutely.
bring the two
Absolutely.
together.
And remember to check in with mind, body, and soul, right?
Yes.
Because again, I can't have, because sometimes when we talk about self-care, really then we're talking about what am I eating and am I exercising? Okay, but what if I hate exercising? That can't be a part of my self-care. That
Yes.
may be a part of me taking care of my body, but
Right.
that's not self-care. Self-care is something that truly feeds my soul, my body. If what I need is, today I just want to go and I want to read something that's going to be awe-inspiring to me, and that's it. I want to lay in bed. I want to do nothing. That's self-care.
I
I'm
love
going to
that.
allow myself that.
That's beautiful, Dr. Buxani. And sort of to just tie up this episode and come to our closing, my last question for you today is if someone listening feels like happiness is out of reach, what's one thought, habit, or belief you'd want them to start holding on to today?
That you don't have to say yes to anything that you don't want to.
Perfect.
Learn to say no. And no is a complete sentence. You don't even need to explain yourself. If we could learn to say no, I think we are 50% over there.
That's amazing. Growing up, Dr. Bakshani, I've always been called Happy Himakshi, but today I think I have a lot more insights on what the word happiness actually means. Learning to say no, as you said, being more accepting, and of course, doing our check ins on a day to day basis. So, thank you, Dr. Bakshani, for
Lovely.
your insights. And see you everyone for another episode of It's Okay Not to Be Okay next week. Hope you enjoyed.
Bye.